Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the ASITII Festival of Space, the Australian space industry, technology, infrastructure and investment. As part of the festival, we have over 40 speakers from 4 different countries and 17 plus sessions. Thank you also to our sponsors. Our platinum sponsor is Inmarsat. Our gold sponsor is Fugro Spark. We had a Women in Space session back in October as part of Global Space Week. And thank you to Lockheed Martin Australia for sponsoring that session. And our official media channel for the ASITII Festival of Space is our spaceanddefence.io channel as well. So please check that out for industry news and updates. And thank you also to our ASITII Festival of Speakers. We have over 40 speakers, as I mentioned, and thank you to all of them. So you can just get a sense of the body of knowledge that we plan to be presenting here throughout the next 4 weeks in each of these sessions. So without further ado, let me introduce our panel for today. Todd McDonell, who is the President Global Government with Inmarsat, Dr. Malcolm Davis, a Strategic Analyst with the Australian Strategic Policy Institute, Andy Koronios, the CEO of SmartSat CRC, Dr. Catherine Grace, Assistant Director with the South Australian Space Industry Centre. And as I mentioned, I'm the Executive Editor with My Security Media, and I'll be moderating this particular session. The broad discussion of what we wanted to take a look at was the national space capabilities. But I think before we start is the why of national space capabilities. And then also the sort of the SITREP, the current situation that we're looking at in terms of building the national space capabilities, because it's still quite early in the piece. So maybe go to the why that we need to be looking at national space capability.
Well, thanks, Chris. Look, I think we're in an exciting time in Australian space and the growth of our space sector. You know, I recall when I first joined ASPI in 2016 as a senior analyst, and I told them that I wanted to focus on space security and space policy, and they said, please do. I began talking to key people in the then space sector, including in defense. And the mindset was very much, well, we don't even need to think about that because the Americans give us everything. That was in 2016. When you look at it now in 2021, the mindset has changed fundamentally. We're no longer content just to be passively dependent on the Americans or others to provide space capabilities for us. We recognize the potential value of a global space sector and being part of that, and doing more than just providing a suitable piece of real estate for the ground segment. We recognize that space is becoming cheaper and easier to access due to Space 2.0, the potential for the commercial space sector to lead and innovate using new technologies such as small satellites, fractionated constellations of CubeSats, and reusable rocket launch technology. And so it's becoming cheaper and easier for Australia to access space. So we have this window of opportunity now. And when the Australian Space Agency was established in 2018, that was a huge step forward from where we'd been. And so I think space in Australia has seriously taken off since then. Also in defense, I think the mindset has changed. You now see a recognition that space is not a peaceful sanctuary that's untouched by geopolitical rivalries below, but is in fact a contested operational domain that could easily become a warfighting domain. So we have to start thinking about how we ensure space access and space control and deter threats from adversaries like China and Russia that are developing counter space capabilities. So we've had a number of mindset changes which are really important. We've got a rapidly growing space sector going forward. And I think the opportunities are there in the next few years for Australia to get some significant developments in the form of satellite manufacture, the ability to launch Australian satellites on Australian launch vehicles from Australian launch sites on a regular and responsive basis. So building up that sovereign launch capability is really critical. And strengthening our ability to do space with key allies through agreements such as AUKUS and also with the Quad is a vital step forward. So in my opinion, where we are now is we're in a much more positive place than where we were some years back. We have a vibrant and growing space sector that I think will only get better and better and stronger. We have a government that's very supportive of the space sector. We have a Department of Defense that recognizes the importance of space and is building up our capabilities for space. And the future looking forward is very positive, particularly as we move from a Space 2.0 approach, which is commercial space, to a Space 3.0 approach, which is investment and building up space-based infrastructure that can enable a space-based economy that generates prosperity on Earth. And that will enable us to do so much more in broader aspects of space exploration, such as the Moon to Mars initiative, returning humans to the moon in this decade and going on to Mars and doing other things. So overall, I'm pretty positive about where we're headed. I think we're in a strong place. And, it's an exciting time from my perspective to be a space policy analyst.
Space 2.0, Space 3.0, or new space, really this high-tech equipment manufacturing startup sector, the fact that we're getting commercialization and players outside of government really allows Australia to be in the forefront of where we need to be focusing.
And I appreciate what people already said. I guess we do take a slightly different view about these things. So first of all, space is an international business. You can't do space and not think internationally, whereas you might want to make some sort of indigenous capability in some areas. Just the very nature of space means it's international straight off that.
First of all, SmartSat is not only civil R&D. We are also doing, we're working very strongly, very well with DST in particular, but with defense in general. Defense is a big investor in SmartSat. And indeed, only last week, we did a bit of an analysis of, we already have launched, we're only 2 years old, but we've launched about 90 R&D projects. And we've counted that 48 of those projects, defense was either leading, participating, or had a strong interest in the type of activities that we were involved in. And I would hazard to say that, in fact, when they saw the outputs of the rest of the R&D, they would have an interest in that as well. Clearly, of course, defense has a classified domain. Defense will be doing things that we don't know about, but they are very, very keen on not only exploiting the R&D outputs from the civil side, but also building that area, building that industrial capability that will then serve defense in the future.